Greetings, brothers and sisters. A bunch of stuff to get to. New Will Smith stuff that's actually kind of interesting. And like the story just keeps on rolling. And revisiting his possible cloned kids, right? Something I've talked about years ago. So I want to revisit that. So then there's a bunch of other stuff. Foo Fighters, like another big reveal on a recent interview they did, and just, you know, more stuff. I can't remember it all. But let's start here with Hilaria. So, she's crazy. And it's not just the thinking that she's Spanish when she's a white American girl who was born to Anglo-Scottish parents who were established people in the community, a doctor and a businessman. You know the story, right? But she's like in her Instagram posts, there's crazy that comes through. And one of my viewers told me about this before it was taken down. The stories on Instagram, they just disappear after new stories come up. Like magic. They just disappear. As if by magic. And so she had this quote here, and then she gives a rant, which is hilarious. It's just really, you know what? Fake, 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 fake. A strong mom doesn't see other moms as competitors. She stands with them, lifts them up, and wants to see them and their children succeed. She's just so wise and prophetic, and, she's just such a do-gooder. And let's see what this do-gooder had to say about a recent story.
An experience that was really disheartening. I dropped the kids off at school and I was driving up 6th Avenue and making a right onto 8th Street. It's a busy morning, lots of people out. I noticed that there was a woman who was getting harassed by a man who was clearly unwell.
OMG. What did you do? You're driving your kids to school, you dropped them off 6th Avenue, going up 6th and turning on 6th and being 666th. And then there was some woman being harassed by a man who's unwell. An unwell man was harassing a well woman, a woman of substance, a woman who was, much more well than the man was well. He was unwell, and he was harassing the woman. What would Hilaria do? I mean, it's just you've got me. Like, you got me sucked in now, and I got to know what happens here. Like, the intrigue is building.
I pulled over, and then I just noticed that lots of people were just walking by her and not paying attention, or paying attention and just deciding to walk by.
Now we've established that everybody else in this story sucks, right? That Hilaria is the lone noticer and the lone hero that's going to take some sort of an action here. Everyone else just walked by and either is too, self-absorbed to notice, or they notice and they're like, pooh, why should I help that well woman from that unwell man? Why should I get involved with that man who's obviously unwell? And so why should I do that? Like, why should I be a part of this thing? I'm not going to be a part of this thing. I'm selfish. Maybe some person who isn't selfish will come along and solve this problem. But the rest of us are selfish. We're all extras in this story, and we're selfish extras.
So I got out of the car, I crossed the street and asked her, "Are you okay?" And she just stood there and she was so afraid. The man started coming at me.
Whoa, you clearly are a hero. The rest of those people just ignored it. But you not only parked your car, and you're famous, you're a famous person. You only parked your car, you crossed the street, and you asked the woman, "Are you okay?" And she was too scared. She didn't have the kind of bravery you had. She needed a rescuer. She needed a hero. You can't have a hero without a her. And you came out, and then the guy turned his unwellness at you. This unwell man is now focused on you. Whatever would you do? How do you get out of this situation, hero?
Long story short, I grabbed her and I pulled her into the car and we drove away.
Okay, so I know you're a hero, and I don't want to, I don't think you've ever lied to us before or misrepresented yourself on a massive scale. You seem to be a very honest person. So let me ask you this. There seems to be a little bit of a contradiction in your story. So first you say...
So I got out of the car, I crossed the street and asked her, "Are you okay?"
Then you say,
I grabbed her and I pulled her into the car and we drove away.
so first you say you got out of the car and you crossed the street. So you couldn't have pulled her in your car, right? Like, are you some sort of, are you a Elasta woman or something? Because your car's on the other side of a street, right? And so how did you pull her into the car? You pulled her across the street away from this unwell man who, had plenty of opportunity to intervene physically or any other way. So I'm just saying there seems to be an inconsistency in your story here.
Fake, 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 fake. And it just reminded me of all the times that we've posted about the AAPI community and just the harassment that they've been getting, the violence that they've been getting.
So this story is something that you've posted before about. The AAPI community is, there's a Stop Hate AAPI, Hate Against Asian American Pacific Island People. And so this is one of Hilaria's causes, apparently, and she's posted about it. And then she saw an instance where an unwell man was harassing a member of this group. And Hilaria saved the day. She intervened with her magic into a busy day. She said it was a busy day. A lot of people were out. A lot of driving was going on. And she parked her car across the road. And long story short, she then pulled the woman into the car, the scared woman, away from this man who was harassing her, this hateful, unwell man, and she saved the day. And she violated the laws of physics to do it. I mean, that's how crazy and, heroic she is. Maybe she can now go save Jussie Smollett from a similar, maybe she can pull Jussie into the car. She can just, as long as she's violating the laws of physics, go back in time and manifest herself in Chicago and save Jussie Smollett and also save his Subway sandwich when she's at it.
But today I saw it with my own eyes.
Are those white girl from Boston eyes or Spanish girl from Boston eyes? What are those? What kind of eyes are those?
In a sunny, bright morning, lots of people out. And it made me so sad because we must stand up for each other. Even if it's scary, even if it's hard, we're all in this together. And so if you see somebody who needs something, please reach out and try to help them.
Exactly, like this brave hero, this heroine. She's been doing heroin, and she obviously has been doing heroin or crack or something. Got Hunter Biden news, too, some investigation. Speaking of crack, I've read about Hunter. Big reveal from, real, like perhaps a real investigation from the FBI. Anyway, I'll get into that in a bit. But, all these other people are just standing around, and you got to be like Hilaria. You got to be like her. She's so brave. She's such a hero. If you do something heroic, you better hope somebody else is around to see it. Because if you talk about it yourself, you sound like a dick, right? You sound like you're bragging. If you do something that's great, you really can't talk about it yourself and not sound sucky. In this case, condescending, because she's comparing herself to everybody else, like this do-gooder is, comparing herself to every other schmo who didn't stand up for this this targeted group in this story where she's the rescuer, right? And she, with flaws in the story. But you can't sound good. You got to hope there's a video camera of you doing the thing or somebody else sees it, right? What you're supposed to do, go, oh, it was nothing, I didn't, I wasn't being brave. I was just doing my, whatever it is, right? You got to make some sort of BS humble statement about how you were, oh yeah, I was just doing what anybody else would do, right? But not Hilaria, because she's literally saying nobody else would do it but me, and we all got to do it. You got to all learn from my bravery. All you people that were standing there, all you drones, all you, NPCs just walking by this, unwell man harassing this woman who was, a targeted group. And none of you guys went and stood up for her. And we got to do a better job. Not me, because obviously, I'm the hero in this story. But everyone else, right? And she wonders why people don't like her. So speaking about people that people don't like, at least anymore. So there was 3 people that I covered There was Tom Hanks, there was Ellen, and there was Will Smith. And they were considered, Ellen was the be kind lady, and Tom Hanks and Will Smith were the good guys, right? Really nice guys, down to earth, not big heads and egos. I mean, just, really positive, right? They got the positive, the narrative. Like some celebrities get that. And they really didn't have any scandals, right? And so, well, Will Smith had to do a lot, right? Like there were things that he had to do and hide about himself and lie about himself. And, times they've kind of humiliated him. But they still gave him the good guy narrative, right? And the good guy, here they are together, Denzel Washington and Will Smith. This is before the Oscars, well before. But they're, 1993, 2002, 2010, 2022. These are all Oscar nights. And Will Smith, doing what he does, being loud and being the center of attention. But they got this narrative. And I didn't, I realized the narrative wasn't accurate for all three people. And now Tom Hanks has more or less disappeared. Because he had that thing. I covered him a long time ago before the Cubies got involved. But he, Tom Hanks is hiding. Remember, they've done some movies where he's trying to, counteract the negative narrative against him. Ellen's show's been canceled. And Will Smith is in hot water, right? And they no longer have that, the good guy narrative, right? And so a couple of memes here. This is Chris Rock and Will Smith. And they were BFFs, right? They were been together, smiling together. And they've known each other for years. Of course, he was in this show which I showed you in the first video I made, where he dated Will Smith, dressed up in women's clothing and put on a wig, and dated Will Smith, who he called Big Willie in that episode, right? And so, they're pals and they know each other, right? And so that makes it harder to believe, easier to believe it's fake, because when people are friends and they know each other, unless they've had some sort of falling out that we don't know about, that would create some sort of animosity, it would come out across as a complete, mental breakdown, right? For him to, smack a friend where he could just say, hey, please don't, just the things are going on with Jada, whatever, please, she's got a disease, whatever. Instead of doing what he did, right? And so, they're not like, they seem to be friends. And there's more that I'm going to get into. There's a video clip I'm going to show you in a moment. To calm Will down, they gave him a statue of Jada. The memes just keep on rolling out. And, they're pretty great. So this is Tiffany Hardish, who, Hardash, I don't know. She, well, we already know what happened here.
I'm not, but I gotta ask.
Because you're not wearing no heels. You comfortable in the mud. I'm uncomfortable, but I look good.
She looks good. You know what? She's following the Hilaria thing. She's not waiting around for somebody else to tell her. She's going to say it herself, right?
That's what it looked like.
Would you define tonight as uncomfortable?
No, I would define tonight as a success.
Okay.
It was a success in her book.
It was a great night tonight.
Okay.
First of all, I seen a man stand up for his wife.
Okay.
Kablawi, that's what he saw. A man stand up for his dude.
We don't see that much anymore. That made me have hope.
Hope. That was a hopeful. Everyone else was thought the same thing. It was hopeful. That's why it's been covered for so many days, because it was a message of hope.
How about you? How did you feel about it?
I wanted your opinion on it because you're a comedian. And so it was that thing where, was that joke too far? How did you feel about what Will did? Because you are someone who's done comedy, and yet,
Yeah, and you're great at it, because you're, hilarious at everything we see you in.
You just said you saw a man defending his wife.
Yeah. I want to know how you felt about it. Would you want your husband to do that for you if you was clearly hurt? I mean, they put her face up on the screen. He looked over at his wife. She was hurt.
She was hurting. She was hurting. She never wanted to be in G.I. Jane. Why would she want to be in G.I. Jane? They're not going to remake G.I. Jane. She's too old for that role. That was hurtful. that bald head, humiliating her. There's a thing that happens I haven't covered before. There's so many women. I could show you the pictures. I've done you just Google celebrity women with shaved heads, and it's a bunch of them. Like, it's something that seems to be, when they go into rehab centers, they come out blonde, right? I show you Kanye coming out blonde. Or in women's cases, they often shave their head. Remember Britney shaved her head when she had her meltdown? And it's a way of, defeminizing them, right? And so, that's another part of this thing.
What would you want?
I would want him to defend me. The thing that made me sad was like this was a big night for Will, and then you saw that emotion for him, and it was like
Exactly. I don't feel anything for Chris getting slapped, but Will is a big night now. He wrecked it for himself. Why did he sabotage himself like that?
it's just I can't. I don't think I've still processed how this night went.
Well, I just know she better take care of business when they get home.
Yeah. Like, look at this. Look at her look there. She looks like that woman who's the Biden, the person that makes the announcements about cyber attacks with look at this ghoulish expression here. Wow. Like, she's disgusted by the thought of Jada taking care of business with Will when they get home.
Because I know I would. If my man did that for me, I'm just saying.
She's just saying she would take care of business if her man slapped another man. It's an aphrodisiac.
Yellow.
Did you talk to?
All right, let's move on. So this is the Nickelodeon Choice Awards, Chris Rock and Will Smith. People have put together a meme where Chris Rock says Will Smith's name here, and then they cut into the thing that just happened and have Will say, "Keep your name out of my mouth," right? So this meme was, has been floating around. But I was interested in this other part. So Chris Rock wins this award.
Thank you all for the Wannabe Award. I think Will Smith got this last year.
He's pointing to Will Smith in a way that's, like he's saying he got this last year.
So now they're working their way down to Chris Rock next year. Todd
And so they're working their way down. Next year it's Todd Bridges.
Bridges gets.
So think about what he just said, right? They're working their way down the star ladder, right? So what he said was Will Smith is a bigger star. He won it last year. I'm a lesser than star in the pyramidal hierarchy. And then Todd Bridges, who is not a very big star and the butt of a lot of jokes, he was on Different Strokes, remember, had drug problems, he would get it the following year. And so he's just given you what he, but at least back then, considered this hierarchy in the celebrity pyramid.
The award. I think my wife.
And so, there's that. So I was getting ready to edit the first part of this video. And so I started covering Will Smith. I don't know, back when I saw that he was, what appeared to be forced to wear women's clothing in multiple. Remember, there was Dave Chappelle came out and said that all these black actors, A-list black actors, had to wear women's clothing. And then I realized, well, there are a lot of A-list white actors that had to wear it as well. And I went through the list, George Clooney, Brad Pitt, even John Wayne, right? It seemed to be some sort of Hollywood, maybe Freemasonic ritual. And Will Smith had that long scene he had in Wild Wild West and other things he had to do, right? But it seemed to be some sort of, Hollywood ritual. So I started covering Will Smith then back in 2015. And so he just was on my radar from then on because I started to see how fake he was, right? I used to like some of his movies. I like the Men in Black things, whatever it was, right? Some of the other things, they were light, whatever. But then I started to see him in a totally different light, and then the rumors about him, from the gay community and from, Hollywood people about him being, bisexual or something, their marriage being a sham, and they just were really fake. And then there was a period of time where YouTube was moving towards away from its, YouTube audience, which was average normal people who were having YouTube channels, to having celebrities and CNN. Remember, like that's when I started to call it them tube, because they were moving away from the audience that built their business to people who were established celebrities or CNN and these what they called authoritarian news. And it started that's when the censorship set in. And Will Smith, who hadn't had enough attention as the number one movie star, hadn't had enough money and fame and things like that, started his own YouTube channel. And it was really bad, and I covered it quite regularly. I think I watched in the beginning, his videos I would get, I didn't subscribe, but I was getting notified, or people were telling me about it. And there was a period of time I was just covering how fake he was, and all of it, right? And how bad his content was. And here he is, ragging on his wife here.
We're at the house. We're about to head to Willow's concert.
Make some noise for Willow!
Willow can't sing. I mean, it's bad. Like I showed you this. It's like Yoko Ono type of level of singing, right? I'm going to get into the whole, these two guys, the clone theory that I floated out there years ago. It's coming back around, so I thought I'd talk about that. I got to, do the video portion here first.
We're going to be late because Jada taking all long. Talking about she got to use the restroom. I'm like, you got to use the restroom. Willow about to do a show. You pee in the car.
And so there's the face of the Will when he was yelling at Chris Rock, right? People said he couldn't act, but this is that same character he was playing. This face he was making when he was, yelling at Chris Rock, right? I could let me just I'll do a side-by-side comparison. The picture on the left is the one from this video from a couple years ago on Will Smith's YouTube channel. And the one on the right is when he's yelling at Chris Rock to keep his name out of his mouth, his wife's name out of Chris Rock's mouth, right? And so this is his angry face. There's another one coming up. His head is tilted in a different direction, but this is when he's trying to be a tough guy. And when he's obviously joking and doing this, with his wife and whatever that is at his YouTube vlog, or whatever they call it. Also, he, his hair has been dyed for the Oscars, right? So this is his beard and hair are gray in this picture from a couple years ago. And in a more recent picture here, Will Smith, here's the other picture at him at the Oscars, right? Even more so. This is his angry face. This is him trying to be a tough guy. This is him getting angry at Chris Rock acting, what, Will Smith calls acting, right? But this is what happens when Will Smith acts like he's angry. This is his go-to face. A couple other faces here as well, right? It's a little different to, pinpoint the expression because he's pausing in the video, but when he's yelling at Chris Rock, his mouth is open. But clearly it's, it's him posturing and trying to act like he's tough. And he's foreboding or something.
Pee in the car.
There it is again, right? Like this was what he was doing with Chris Rock. This is his tough guy. This is the tough guy, Will Smith.
That's MC Light, hip-hop icon.
Pee in the car.
You walked out on the wrong. You can't judge me from that.
You can't judge me for that.
And Jada's just late. Just a late-ass lady. Your name should be Leda.
And so this is, they often they don't like each other. They often are, they really set in at each other all the time.
You were Jada. You were Jada. Leda Pinkett.
Time, Joker.
You not all time. Don't be calling me Joker on TV.
Joker. And they know better than anyone.
Look, this is Willow's night.
It's never Willow's night. It's always Will's night. Right? It's never Willow's night. It's never Jada's night. It's never Jaden's night. As long as Will's there, it's Will's night, right?
This is Willow's night. Now I gotta drive and hold this camera.
You really don't. You really don't.
Like he's such a hurry to get to the show, and he's, got to do his little thing here, right? And it's not funny. It's not good. I mean, it's just not good content. It's really narcissistic. It's only, if he wasn't a famous celebrity, then people would be like, who is this? Like this is,
I got a job, man. I don't pull the job and hold this camera. I'm very excited to see my daughter and put my seatbelt on too, because
you're very excited to talk about yourself, right? And this is, we're going to go the clone thing later on. Here's Willow singing. Oh, they're doing the heavy on the auto-tune. See, she can't sing, so I have to cover it up with auto-tune. So here it is, here.
It's crazy. That's when me and Mommy were looking at you on stage just now. Jada, what are you doing all the way down there? Stand up.
So short jokes are fine for Jada, but bald jokes aren't.
All right, so babe, just sign off. Say goodbye. Say Willow did good.
Willow did good, but you know what?
That's all you needed to say.
Wait a minute, babe. No, this is really like, we did good.
She just smacked him. Will, let's watch Jada smacked Will. This is where he's being abused at home, and he transferred it to Chris Rock.
We did good.
See, she slapped him. The time Jada slapped Will. Here it is. You saw it here first. I didn't know this was coming.
We did good.
Ah!
Okay.
Jada,
See, that's
I dozed off. Sorry, what were you saying?
Now,
You
see, that's
say
the
it faster. I
problem.
dozed off.
And you got slapped. And this is how it transferred. And poor Chris Rock is on the receiving end.
But I'm saying,
I'm saying,
though,
this is a proud moment.
You know what I mean?
As parents, we did good.
We did good. It was a lot of pain.
It wasn't no lot of pain.
This
Stop
was-
it. Oh, it was so hard.
Oh, no, I'm just saying.
17 days of labor, and then
Okay. And so I'm sure there'll be more coming from the YouTube channel. Is just loaded with bad content and narcissism and, all this stuff. We'll come back to the narcissism when we revisit the clone thing. So this came up in my feed again on my YouTube phone, by my the app on my phone, which seems to be like really, I find so many videos now. It's just, it's algorithms, but I take it as coming from God, right? And so they're talking about the haunted house in this movie 666, Studio 666. And first, this thing came up here.
Did you see any?
It looked haunted.
It looked haunted? Was not haunted as far as any of you know?
Not haunted.
Not haunted.
We told a lot of people that it was haunted, but we were lying.
See, what I realized what I don't like about this guy, Dave Grohl, and I never knew who he was till this trailer came out, like I maybe heard of his name. I don't think I even know a Foo Fighters song. But what I don't like about him is he's like a corporate CEO who is like pretending to be a rock star. Like he has that very corporate CEO type of, he's like a lawyer, who's pretending to be a rock star, right? Like he's a poser, but what he's like a wolf in sheep's clothing, right?
Because we were trying to sell a horror movie.
And you lied before for purposes of press? Any of you? No? What?
No, he's never lied before. Just something about the guy, like he's just unlikable. See, this guy does a lot of talking here too. They seem to be the two, the people with the most, street cred, the band. But then he says this.
I'm also possessed by Satan.
I'm also possessed by Satan.
I'm also possessed by Satan.
And of course you have that whole... Who assigned the death scenes?
The guy that did all the special effects is dude Tony Gardner.
Was there any discussion about who would be killed first?
I think it was kind of written in the script. Chris
It was written in the script, so like he kills all his bandmates, right?
got it first.
Yeah, I got it first.
You got it first.
Yeah.
Art imitating life.
Were you upset about that?
I think my ego was maybe a little bruised until Pat pointed out that just meant I had to work a lot less. So
Yeah. It's like, oh, you get to go.
I mean, it worked out pretty good.
That's a good point.
Worked out pretty good.
Woo!
A lot less time on set.
See you guys tomorrow.
You didn't show up on shoot days just to show like kind of brotherly support, nothing like that?
I was there in spirit. Yeah.
So this is not just a horror film, it's a comedy horror. Well, we saw the,
It's not just a horror film, it's a comedy horror film. And, this guy's going to be dead like a month later, right? Like, who knew that could happen? So I'm coming back to the Will Smith thing, I should say that. But I got to go to the headlines. I got the headlines on one page, on one browser, and I got the videos on this browser and this headline. Bruce Willis misfires guns on movie sets amid cognitive struggles, reports said. And so Bruce Willis almost Alec Baldwin himself, right? but he, is because he was JoJo Magooing it, and his, with dementia, he was mentally breaking down, and he was misfiring various guns, and so he was in some movies recently where you could tell the guy was definitely not doing very well. So the mainstream media is covering Hunter Biden, and so is the FBI, and I don't have any faith of real news or real justice, right? But it's changed. This is, not good for Hunter and JoJo Magoo. Let's just watch this beginning part. This is from CBS News.
We also have new information this morning about an ongoing investigation into President Biden's son, Hunter. Federal officials are looking at his foreign business dealings, including his ties to a Chinese energy company.
And so, we've known about this for a while, and it would have, destroyed JoJo's chance of winning the election. And there was a massive cover-up, including Trump's own attorney general, right, who was supposed to be a shill for Trump. They accused him of, shutting down investigations into Trump, the left, and all this. But he shut down investigation into Hunter Biden and didn't make it public that it was actually happening. And neither did the FBI, like all these organizations, and the news media knew about it, and including Fox News, nobody covered it, right? That this was, serious, and they knew the laptop, the hard drive was real. All of those things would have destroyed JoJo's chance of winning. So, like, when they say the election wasn't rigged, well, I'm not saying it was like the right-wing people say it was, right? But in terms of that, the media and the government withholding information that would have destroyed a candidate's chance of winning, it's completely rigged, right? This is, and we're talking about Fox News here, who withheld stories about, they're talking about Hunter Biden now, but they didn't because Fox News was, on board with it, right? In terms of even cheating, you can't cheat when somebody has such a massive scandal that nobody would believe he could have got elected, right? And this would have been a massive scandal because it wouldn't have just exposed JoJo Magoo's crackhead son. And then he writes a book about being a crack addict afterwards, right? And Jimmy Kimmel, gets on his knees and services the guy. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't have a problem having parents take their candy away from their children, making them cry and humiliating them. But, he couldn't go after Hunter Biden's son, a president's son who's a crackhead, right? And so all these things were, there for the taking, and nobody picked up on them. But now it's being covered.
Biden's business practices is broader than previously known. The probe is exploring whether the younger Biden and his associates violated tax, money laundering, and foreign
this is extensive
lobbying laws.
And now the guy's selling artwork, and he's already being investigated for money laundering. Selling artwork is one of the ways the mob launders money, right? And so CBS News is now covering this. And like I said, I don't have much faith in it. But it's definitely, a step in a direction that wasn't there before, right? And, they might be doing this just to, say they did it, right? Oh, we investigated him, he's fine. We'll see how this turns out. Trump is unlikely to end up in jail. and so is Hunter Biden. They just don't do this. Like, we haven't seen. I mean, Richard Nixon didn't go to jail, so, I mean, this is, I would be shocked if this ends up turning into anything because, just how corrupt Washington is and all the rest of it. But it'd be good if it did, right? Like, at least it's now a possibility.
$1 retainer was signed with the Chinese energy company for
which we knew about because of his laptop, right? And we knew about this because Tony Bobolinsky, or whatever his name was interviewed by Tucker Carlson and was already factually Hunter Biden's and Joe Biden's brother's business partner. And he, said all these things happen, right? The Biden family was just given $5 million by China. So, I mean, all of these things are, they seem pretty criminal, and we'll see how it ends up here. The contradictory claims to the Academy lie was Smith asked to leave. And so some people are saying he was, and some people are saying he wasn't. The Academy accused of lying about asking Will Smith to leave. Still going on. Will Packer, this is the real Will Packer, not, he isn't the real Will Packer. That wasn't his nickname. Just so you know, I'm doing my research here. Will Packer, I wasn't part of the conversations asking Will Smith to leave. Will Packer was in charge of the Oscars or something. Oscars producer reveals police were prepared to arrest Will Smith. They were prepared. They didn't do it. That's Will Packer. He's the producer. Will Packer is the producer of the Oscars. He was interviewed on Good Morning America, which I'm not going to show you. But, there it is. Chris Rock shuts down fan yelling F. Will Smith during rowdy second night of Boston shows. And so Rock said like 5 or 6 times he walks across the stage, the woman recalled. And, he's telling them, no, he said. Don't say F. Will Smith. Right? And so, that's happening in Boston. And here's the main story. People just realized why Will Smith's kids are named Jaden and Willow, and minds are blown. And so I have some pictures of this. Let me show you this, and I'll talk about the clone thing. So I noticed this about, 4 or 5 years ago when I started covering Will Smith. And I did a number of videos on him, and then later on, when he had his YouTube channel, I revisited it like 2 or 3 years later. So people can be very narcissistic about naming their kids, like naming their kid after themselves and calling them Junior. Like they're a junior version of you, right? And, the way to do it, I've talked about this before, is you attune to the baby's spirit or whatever it is, right? Or God, and you ask, what's the name? What should be this kid's name? And, that's a good way of doing it. You get the actual name that suits the kid. And you find people all the time who have nicknames or use their middle name or whatever it is because their first name doesn't suit them, right? They've been misnamed in some way. And for Jaden and Willow Smith, Jaden is named after Jada, and Willow is named after Will. And look at these two narcissistic MNFers that, name their kids and, the different sex kids, because that's interesting as well, after themselves. I mean, that shows you everything you need to know about how narcissistic these guys are, right? And that Willow and Jada are just extensions of their parents' narcissism. Like this is, that's the thing that people are just realizing. But I took it a step further because I noticed that Willow looked like Will. I mean, facially, they have like the same faces and expressions. And Jaden and Jada were very similar. You can see it in videos. These are pictures I pulled a long time ago when I covered this before. And I was like, what, did they clone them? Right? Are these just clones, And so is Tequila. When Will Smith says Tequila, which I covered in the video yesterday, was integral into the conception of the kids, right? That they needed Tequila to and he needed tequila to impregnate his wife. Is that a code word for cloning them? Right? And, and I'm serious, but I don't know, like how I feel about it. But I was one of the first people in the so-called truth community to cover cloning. I mean, this is like 7 years. I don't know how long ago. 7 years ago. It was, something I realized, because if they can clone a rhesus monkey, if they can clone a pig, a horse, a cow. I mean, there's all these animals that they've cloned, mammals that they've cloned, and some of those animals are just as sophisticated in their genetic structure as human beings. So they can clone human beings, and they've even admitted to it. So the only reason they wouldn't clone human beings is because some, bogus, lightweight international law that forbids them from doing that, right? And they don't follow those laws, right? These people with money to do this. And so they can clone people, and I'm sure have been doing it, right? And there's lots of evidence and proof about it. I covered it in so many various videos before. But then the truth community got goofy. It was pre the QB stuff, but you could see there was a lot of dopes coming into the truth community, and the truth community was getting shillier and shillier and stupider. And there was this theory now, and you know what? I believed this in the beginning myself, but then when I thought about it, I was like, oh, that's stupid. That they could take a celebrity's DNA, right, or whatever, cells, and clone them and accelerate the growth process, and then take their consciousness through transhumanism and put it into the now, fully adult clone, and also get the clone to stop accelerating its aging, right? They could take a clone, and within 3 months or whatever it is, whatever period of time it was, there would be a 40-year-old man, and then it would just stop right there. And then they would age naturally after that, right? So they would be in this artificial womb. They'd put the cells in there. It would go from embryo to a 40-year-old man or a 50-year-old man or a 70-year-old man, and upload the clone, right? Upload the clone with a, consciousness, transhuman level technology to copy a person's consciousness and, their brain patterns, and upload all those things plus their memories into the clone, and then take the clone out of the artificial womb. And even though it's a 40-year-old clone and has never walked or talked or anything like that, it would immediately resume natural life. And so this is, impossible in a bunch of different ways. But so many people believe this and still believe it, and it's just ridiculous if you think your way through it. So first of all, if you go into a coma for 3 or 4 months, or you are in some sort of accident and you're bedridden and you're not walking, you have to go through rehabilitation. I mean, I was in a cast for like turning my ankle playing basketball when I was at the height of my, I was like 18, 19, 20, something, when I was really young and still spry, right? And when they took the cast off, it took me a while to like walk normally, and my right leg was half the size, my right calf was half the size of my left one, just 6 weeks in a cast, right? And people know this, like, you have to retrain yourself. And so there are milestones that you reach when you're a child that would be way harder to reach when you're an adult. And so if they clone somebody and they began life as an adult, they would have to learn to walk, they would have to learn to talk, and, all these things. Just because your mind could be copied, and I'm not saying it could be, but this is transhumanism technology, which was floating around at that time. Even if your mind could be copied, and they say they don't even have that technology yet, so, of course they lie, but, even if they could do that, that still would, the clone would have to learn how to be a human, right? Like when your first couple of years, you learn to go to the bathroom in a toilet instead of your pants, right? You learn to, feed yourself and eat and, do hygiene. I mean, all these things are milestones that you do the rest of your life. And they're things that it would take you a while. You have to go from crawling to walking to like stumbling, right? Watch a kid when taking their first steps and, ride a bike and all those things. There's all this muscle memory that you get as a kid, and they can't recreate that in a cloned environment, right? And so the truth community was just getting stupid. Like they were just making things up, fantastical things. And then they started saying, well, this person's been replaced by a clone and that person's been replaced by a clone without really thinking through. Like when I started to think through some of these narratives that were floating around the truth community, I knew the truth community had gotten bogus, right? And so right now, the technology that we know they have in terms of cloning is they can take some cells from an animal, or a person, and put it in embryo form, and it will start splitting, and they can take the embryo and plant it in a womb, the womb of a woman or, the animal or whatever it is, and it will grow naturally, and the woman will give birth to a clone baby. And there's some evidence that they have artificial wombs or they're working on artificial wombs. But either way, it's the same thing, right? It's the same process. It's the natural birthing process. But instead of having a woman's egg fertilized by a male sperm, they can do it with cells. And that's what we know they have for sure. And anything else would be, a huge leap in technology compared to other comparable technologies that exist nowadays, right? And so that's what they have in terms of cloning. But it would work with the case of Willow and Jada, and I'm not saying that Willow and Jaden, because that's what they could have done, right? Taken some cells from Will, and then, it would have to be influenced in terms of it being a biological female, like, what happened. Instead of being, Will, it'd have to be Willow, right? But, that's something that they can do, right? Technically, they have that kind of capability. I'm not saying they did it, but it looks a little suspicious. They look, very similar, like the facial bone structure of Willow and Will and Jada and Jaden. Just saying, I mean, I don't care. And like, the way my brain thinks about it, the way I experience these things now is completely different than 5-6 years ago. Because I just don't care anymore. I don't know how much I cared then, but I don't, like I'm never going to know, and it's fine, I mean, they're just theories and things. But either way, there's a level of narcissism in that family to name your kids after yourselves in this way. Like each parent got a kid, right? And, ironically, the kid that they got looks a lot like them. One more thing I have to add. So, I was one of the first people, I think the first person in the truth community to talk about this back in 2014, 15, or whatever it is. I mean, I think cloning had been out there, but not really talked about it in this way. And then what became the QBs, the mentality of it's a certain mentality where anything that, I mean, they just jumped at anything, right? A lot of people still in the truth community, I mean, the truth community is plagued by this, jump at ideas, and the more sensationalistic, the more they talk about it and promote it and buy into it, and the more that they're butthurt when you disagree with them. And so I had all these people now calling me a shill for, thinking I'm covering up this massive, cloning happening. And they pointed this one guy who wasn't famous, wasn't anybody, who just said he was cloned. And the guy's crazy. You can see he's crazy. Like, by the way everything about him. And so, but the truth community, just some crazy, like, guy who's looked like he's borderline homeless. And they're like, this guy says he's cloned. He says this is how they do it. And I'm like, no, like it's just, people are liars, right? You need a lot more proof than that. They can clone humans because they can clone animals. And they might have some hidden technology, but the kind of stuff that people think is being done isn't. And then anytime somebody was replaced, you had all these Trump supporters who saw Donald Trump sort of go against what they thought Trump was all about. Instead of, admitting they were wrong, they just started saying Trump was cloned, right? And so the whole thing just got goofy. That's when I knew, like that was before the QBs, but I could see the truth community was just going downhill I was realizing that I was a part of the problem because I wasn't really thinking about things clearly, and I was just expecting that other people did research or that they didn't. And because there was no like journalistic integrity, there was no, sort of journalistic training, there's no editors, people are just free to announce anything they wanted on the internet, and that was becoming a problem. And now, of course, things have gone south for the truth community because of it, censorship and all the rest of it. Because when people don't censor themselves, they get censored, right? Like when people don't, have their own editors and don't fact check themselves, they get fact checked. And then the truth community lost all credibility as being a bunch of like dopes in their basement who were, paranoid conspiracy theorists who would just make up stuff and put it on the internet like it was fact. And then there was all these, legitimate disinformation governmental employees that were, the whole thing. But cloning, we know that it's possible. And it could be possible that the Smiths clone themselves. I know they would do it because they're that narcissistic. I know Will would do it. I think they both would do it, right? I'm not saying that they are because I don't know. I used to think I knew. And now I'm like, yeah, maybe, right? And I don't care. Like, is this the most effed up thing that's going on now? No, right? Like, there's way more effed up things going on now, and things have gotten worse, but it's a possibility. But, on a different note, you can see now that the normies or the sheeple are starting to catch up to where the truth community was 5, 6, 7 years ago. I don't mean just with this, but with other stories and things like this, right? And these celebrities are starting to be exposed. They're dropping like flies physically. Some of them are dying, some of them are getting sick. And then you have these other ones who are falling from grace. Their brand, their illusion is coming down. And, they're starting to have to face the music. That's the beauty of the apocalypse, right? Because the truth has to come out sometime. And usually it happens when things are about to collapse. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Parvado, definitely born from the apocalypse. And the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.